In this video, we will go over the general process of how the cooking assistant understands to substitute ingredients in recipes. The goal is for the cooking assistant to know when each ingredient can be used as a substitute. To do so, it builds profiles for each substitute based on applicable cases it has seen in the past. This way, by having the substitute profiles, it can know when each of these ingredients can be used and, for example, answer the questions when can we use oil or when can we use brown sugar. The agent retrieves knowledge from the food-on knowledge graph to represent this example in human-centric terms. This way, it can learn that it can use oil to replace animal product that is high in fat when the recipe also has flour. This knowledge now becomes part of the oil's substitution profile, and the assistant will suggest to use oil as substitute in similar cases. When the agent is asked to suggest substitutes for particular cases, the function looks like this. First, it uses the food-on knowledge graph to semantically represent the substitution case at hand. Then, it retrieves from its personal dynamic memory substitute ingredients with profiles that are similar to this case. Finally, it suggests them in order of similarity. We will see more technical details later in this demo.
We use an agent that has already been trained on only 100 examples to present its current task understanding and how we can affect it by providing only one more substitution example. We want to cook our project's favorite recipe, almond cookies, but we want to serve it to people with high blood pressure. Let's ask the agent what we can use instead of salt. Asking the original query.
Hey robot, in our favorite almond cookie recipe, what can we use instead of salt?
I understand that you mainly want to replace the salt ingredient, or an ingredient with the salt product property, or an ingredient with the sodium chloride food product property. For this reason, I suggest to use garlic salt with a score of 84% because it usually replaces the salt ingredient, or to use garlic powder with a score of 3% because it usually replaces an ingredient with the salt product property.
We will now see how the robot understands or interprets the user's question and how it suggests a candidate substitute. The substitution question consists of the recipe and the ingredient we want to replace, where the recipe is represented as a collection of ingredients. The robot knows the recipe ingredients by having access to our cookbook. Each ingredient is represented in a mathematical space, where each dimension either refers to a specific ingredient, one hot encodings, or to a specific ingredient property among the ones retrieved from the food-on knowledge graph. The knowledge injected from food-on allows the agent to relate similar ingredients. For example, the almond and the almond extract ingredients are different, but food-on enables the agent to know that they are both almond products. The ingredient substitution query, which represents the user's question, is calculated by aggregating representations of ingredients involved in the question, and subsequently is also defined in the same mathematical space. While 90% of the query representation comes from the ingredient we want to replace, in this case salt, the rest 10% comes from the other ingredients in the recipe. This way, we don't only ask what we can use instead of salt, but we ask so for this particular recipe. Not all recipe ingredients affect the query representation with the same gravity. More rare ingredients have a greater impact. Since the query is still defined in the same interpretable space, we can also see how the agent interprets or perceives the substitution question. For each ingredient, the agent learns a separate substitute ingredient representation, based on past substitution experiences or queries, where this ingredient has been used as a substitute. To estimate whether an ingredient is a good substitution for a given query, we calculate the inner product between the query representation and the substitute ingredient representation of a candidate ingredient. In this case, the best match is the garlic salt ingredient.
We know that lime juice can also sometimes replace salt, and can also help with high blood pressure problems. We provide an example of such substitution on a similar recipe to the agent.
Garlic? That does not seem right to me. Hey robot, in our other similar recipe, almond biscotti, we can substitute salt with lime juice.
Thank you for this example. I learned that the ingredient lime juice can be used when we want to replace the salt ingredient, or an ingredient with the salt product property.
We will now see how the agent learns from a grounded experience. The experience in this case is a substitution example provided by the user. The substitution example consists of a query that is the same as before, the recipe ingredients and the ingredient we want to replace, but now it comes together with a good substitute, in which case is lime juice. The agent calculates once again the query representation for this new recipe, keeping in mind that we want to replace the salt ingredient and giving it more weight accordingly. In the example, the user suggests that lime juice can replace salt in this particular recipe. Accordingly, the agent updates the substitute representation of lime juice by adding the current query representation to it.
Asking again the original query to see updated task behavior.
Alright, let's try this again then. Hey robot, in our favorite almond cookie recipe, what can we use instead of salt?
I understand that you mainly want to replace the salt ingredient, or an ingredient with the salt product property, or an ingredient with the sodium chloride food product property. For this reason, I suggest to use lime juice, with a score of 45%, because it usually replaces the salt ingredient, or to use garlic salt, with a score of 45%, because it usually replaces the salt ingredient.
The agent is asked again how to replace salt in the almond cookie recipe that we asked it earlier. Let's see how the agent's updated understanding on how to substitute ingredients will affect its response on the original question on replacing salt in the almond cookie recipe. Although the query and its representation are the same, the agent now sees lime juice to be a slightly better substitution candidate given the single example it was provided on the other almond biscotti recipe.